So our third of the primary three grace notes that you'll encounter in Great Highland bagpiping is E. So E grace notes are done with the ring finger of the left hand, and from a technical perspective, I always found E grace notes the easiest, just because the grace note is on your top hand, all the technique, all the other finger work is your bottom hand, so it's a nice kind of delegation of duties, a separation of what you're doing here versus what you're doing here. It makes it relatively easy. The trick is, for most people, since we live in a predominantly right-handed world, your left hand ring finger is your weakest finger. So from a physical standpoint, I always found E grace notes to be the most difficult, just because it is tough to control that finger. It's tough to get grace notes quick without really kind of chomping down on the chanter. So be very mindful of that specifically with these grace notes. But as I said, E grace notes are entirely on the top hand, and the notes that you play, or the notes that you're decorating with the E grace note, are entirely on the bottom hand, because remember, grace notes must be above the melody note to be considered a grace note. E grace notes are only performed by lifting and then closing the top hand ring finger, which sounds a very brief E, which is why they're named that. E grace note from low G to low A is going to look very similar to the rest of the grace notes we've done. It will be open the grace note, close the grace note, and you're on low A. Notice that that note transition occurs during the duration of the grace note. Low A to B, again, you open the grace note, you get ready to play B, you close the grace note, suddenly on B. B to C, open the grace note, get ready to play C, close the grace note, you're on C. And then C to D, you open the grace note, get ready to play D, close the grace note, you're on D. Like I said, from a fingerwork standpoint, kind of the technical, mechanical standpoint, I found E grace notes to be the most straightforward of the three. And they're also, you don't have that kind of second to highest note funniness, like from E to F with a G grace note, it's kind of funny. From B to C with a D grace note, kind of funny. In this case, because they're on different hands, it doesn't feel weird or look weird at all. So E grace notes, I enjoyed in a roundabout way learning E grace notes, but again, the physical component of E grace notes can be the most challenging. So make sure that you're paying special attention to that and kind of taking special intentional time to get your E grace notes to a similar quality as your G and D grace notes. You don't want really good D grace notes, really good G grace notes, and then your E grace notes are just really in there stinking it up. You want it to be a similar, quick, relaxed grace note sound. So the grace note scale for E is just the bottom hand and then back down, and it's going to look and sound like this.